Hey, Falcons and NFL fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL Jocks and Pigskins. I'm back. I don't know if Tom teased you that I was just swimming in Jeff Saturday news that I couldn't do the show last week. That wasn't actually true. And I made it through the Jeff Saturday week covering the Indianapolis Colts.
Jeff Saturday made it through too.
Yes,
won his game.
Lucky he was playing the Raiders, but
yeah, we'll
talk about the Colts a little bit later today. With Tom Pollen, Chris Smitherman behind the scenes, I'm Dave Holcomb. We got another exciting show for you today. It's week 11 in the NFL. The Falcons have had, more than a week off. Going to be 10 days by tomorrow. Home game against a winnable opponent. But, we said that.
No. A home game against a winnable opponent.
You didn't let me finish my last clause. But the last two opponents were winnable for the Falcons as well. So no disrespect to the Bears. And really the next three games, if you want to look beyond this week for the Atlanta Falcons, these next three games are all winnable, but they're all losable as well. They're all teams that are playing pretty well, especially on offense. Chicago's playing really well on offense. Washington just upset the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Steelers got back in the win column and got TJ Watt back. So before the season, we identified this stretch as this is where the Falcons need to make their hay. And that's still true, but it's still, I don't want to say tricky, but no guarantee that they win any of these games.
No, it's a lot worse than they were. When we were looking at this stretch a couple of weeks ago, we were looking at this stretch. Whoa, something happened. We were looking at this stretch as games that, with the Falcons at top of the division at 4-4, this was where the Falcons can make their mark, where they could really hit their season and make themselves a team to beat in the playoff race. And they completely failed to do that. Just fell apart. It was just pathetic to watch. The Chargers game was one thing, but watching that Carolina game, the Falcons were not ready to play the Carolina Panthers Thursday night. It was just an awful effort. Marcus Mariota played those two games like he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. And he has no business starting this weekend. We don't
have to revisit the last two games just because I wasn't here. I'm sure Falcons fans want to forget about it too, because this is a big game tomorrow, and the big easy storyline for us today, deciding what to talk about, is the quarterbacks. You have Justin Fields playing really well on one side. It's been well documented in Atlanta about Fields versus Pitts. Did they make the wrong choice? I was pretty strongly in Pitts' corner when the pick was made. I think I was more minority among our, peers at Atlanta Sports Unlimited. I know Terrence Moore definitely hated the pick at the time and hates it even more now. So that is a huge, storyline going into this game. And the Falcons' own quarterback situation is as well, just with Mariota starting again instead of Desmond Ridder. I would like to just see what Desmond Ridder can do at the very least. And you're going to see, maybe you're not going to see him until, I guess you're hoping Mariota wins this game. And then if you're a Falcons fan, you're hoping that. I know you're not, but if you're a Falcons fan, you're hoping that Mariota gets back on track and at least his team wins. And I guess that in that case, Mariota is going to remain the starting quarterback. But I think the scenario that I proposed before the season is still possible. And I think it's kind of a doomsday scenario where the Falcons go 500 or worse. They're 4-7, 5-7, around that mark in the beginning of December. And then you put Ridder in for 5-6 games. And you have such a small sample size of Ridder, you don't know what to do in next year's draft class when you're drafting in the top 10 again.
Well, see, this was the perfect time to put Ridder in because you've got a mini buy going, which I guess is what they're calling this now, is the mini buy.
The mini buy.
And You have a quarterback. Mariota is not the team. All right, we know that. We knew that going into the season. Mariota, well, maybe we didn't know it for sure, but we know it now. Mariota is not the future of this team.
Well, I feel like we knew that before the season too.
Yeah, we did, but there was always that thought that maybe Mariota kind of finds that second overall pick mojo and does something with it.
There's only one Geno Smith, right?
Hey, you never know, right?
That's true. Yeah, you never know. And I think if we were going to rank the quarterbacks, journeyman quarterbacks that were getting their second chance, Mariota might have been pretty high on that list. I don't know who else you have on that list besides him and Geno Smith.
Smith would have been on the bottom of that list.
Yeah, I think you would. Was there any? I'm trying to think of who else would be eligible, but you probably have Mariota 1, Trubisky. I think I'd have ahead of Geno Smith, but Mitch Trubisky 2 and Geno Smith 3. But even just looking at the Steelers situation, you still knew that Trubisky wasn't the future because you drafted Kenny Pickett.
Right.
And I think Mariota was kind of in the same scenario, even though Ritter was a third-round pick. I thought Falcons fans and maybe the Falcons organization was looking at, well, we got a pretty good quarterback in the third round because it was a weaker class and quarterbacks fell. It was kind of a weird draft. So we got like the third best quarterback, or maybe we felt like the best quarterback, but the third quarterback picked in the third round. He's not really a third round pick. Well, if that's the case, based on how Mariota's played, that Mariota shouldn't still have the job. You should have already moved on to Ritter.
Yeah, I mean, in any other situation, you would say that it's time to see Ritter. As I say, you got 10 days to prepare for a defense that's not playing well. A defense, since the Bears traded Robert Quinn and Roquan Smith, linebacker, they've struggled. They have no real direction on defense. And this was the time, if you want to actually give Ritter a chance to play against a defense that's struggling, where you can maybe roll up some success against a team, this is it. This was the time. You had 10 days to prepare him, and they're not going to do it. And it surprised me when I heard Smith say that Mariota was going to stay at the quarterback, especially after his last two performances, which were, as I said, were pathetic. So find out. This was your perfect chance. Yeah. This was it.
Yeah, and, I think sometimes coaches have too much tunnel vision, and that probably is the case with Smith right now. He's so focused on trying to beat the Bears. He thinks Mariota gives him the best chance to beat the Bears, which maybe that's true based on how Ritter's practicing or whatever. Maybe Mariota's performing better and just Smith has more confidence in him. But I didn't mean to bring up the Steelers again, but it's another parallel that they didn't start Kenny Pickett off of the mini bye against the Jets, which Jets have turned out to be a good team. But at the time, it was Zach Wilson's first start. Joe Flacco started in those first handful of games. You thought that was a perfect time for Kenny Pickett to get his feet wet. And he ended up getting in that game anyway, but he didn't have the full week of practice and 10 days of practice and 10 days of preparation. I know they don't practice during the mini bye, but you have 10 days of preparation that you're the starter.
Yeah, you're still sitting in the film room and looking over, reviewing your next game.
Right. Yeah, and instead, Kenny Pickett gets his first start against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think it was, which just wasn't – they ended up winning partially because I guess Mitch Trubisky or was there I think there might have been a start before that. I'm getting my games confused. They played the Bills before that. So Kenny Pickett's first start was against the Buffalo Bills. That was not on the road. Not ideal at all for the rookie quarterback. And you kind of see the same scenario maybe going to happen for Ritter. If the Falcons aren't able to win this game against the Bears, does he then start on the road against a defense that, again, just kind of shut down Philadelphia? That's not ideal for the young signal caller. And if you go a little bit further down the road, the Falcons still have their bye week coming up. So that's another opportunity for them to have Ritter have an extended period of preparation and then start the next game. But you have the Saints after that, road game, Ravens after that, road game. So those are not ideal places to start the rookie. And that's what I'm talking about, tunnel vision with coaches. You have to think about this and not just think about the next week. Who's my best quarterback to beat the Bears? It's the whole overall season and your overall organization of when is the time to put in Ritter and see what he can do, because, we have to make a determination on what he is really before next year's draft. I think they need to make that determination.
So do I. The hell of it is I think you've already made the determination that Mariota is not coming back. He's only signed on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
So you already know he's not coming back. You better find out what you have in house right now. Because you're right. The last 4 weeks after the bye does not give you a lot of, doesn't give you a big sample size to make a judgment on whether Ritter can actually be an NFL quarterback or whether you have to, you're going to be far enough down in the draft, I would think, where you can get yourself someone that's rated. I haven't looked at the draft and who's ready to, who they're rating as top picks, and so I'm not quite sure how far. I'm not sure how far the quarterback class is going to drop down, whether they'll drop down to the Falcons or not. But still, you got this guy at number 3. He was one of the projected better quarterbacks in the class. Figure out what he can do now. Do you think Arthur Smith still thinks he's a playoff team? That he's still making a run for a playoff spot? Would that be why Mariota's not sitting right now?
I think that absolutely is the reason. Absolutely. Yeah. But based on how Mariota has played, and you really ripped him a new one last week, and I think it was deserved. Based on how he's played, I don't know. Like, Ritter must be performing really poorly in practice for Smith to still believe that Mariota gives him a better chance to win, that's not encouraging in terms of forecasting the young rookie.
No, it's not.
I want to get to a question from Gary, and we're kind of already talking about this. Assuming the Falcons don't make the playoffs and end up with an early first-round pick, do you see Atlanta looking for a quarterback in the draft? And I wouldn't rule it off the table. It's too hard to say yes or no right now, but it's not off the table. And that's why you need Ritter to go in to make that determination of, do we still need a franchise quarterback?
Right. Exactly. We have to find out now. Or else you go into this draft the same way you went into the draft where you still thought you had Matt Ryan playing at a decent enough level, and you take Kyle Pitts instead of taking the next quarterback, your next franchise quarterback out of a pool of there was still 3 or 4 when the Falcons picked. You still had your options for franchise quarterback to eventually replace Matt Ryan, but you went with Kyle Pitts because you thought, well, Ryan's going to last a couple more years, and we still have a shot at getting into the playoffs and making something happen in these next 2 seasons. Well, it didn't work out that way.
I don't want to go down this rabbit hole again, but it didn't work out because they tried to get Deshaun Watson. The plan would have worked. The plan that plan would have been fine if they didn't go for Deshaun Watson.
Right.
And going for Deshaun Watson, if they get him, I guess their quarterback situation is solved, although they don't have a pick for the next 4 years.
I'm not convinced of that.
Well, they would think that.
They would think that.
They would think that. They wouldn't have drafted Desmond Ritter. But yes, I think that the whole plan, maybe this just further emphasizes the fact that the whole plan from the start has been messed up. Because if your original plan was to stick with Matt Ryan, and that was the argument to go with the tight end Kyle Pitts, then you end up going for a different quarterback that pushes Matt Ryan out of town, speeds up drafting a new rookie, and now, you're not putting him in to see what he can do before you just have to make a determination, for next year's draft. Potentially, that's what's happening now.
But at the time, I still thought you needed a backup quarterback to start grooming in place of Matt Ryan. Ryan was 37 at the time. It was that time. Quarterbacks start losing, not all quarterbacks, but a majority of quarterbacks start losing that touch between age 36 and 37.
I don't disagree with that. It's more old school line of thinking of, I'm going to draft a guy and he's going to sit behind Matt Ryan for a year or two. That just doesn't really happen very much anymore. You draft your young quarterback when there's the opening.
But it doesn't mean it can't happen. Doesn't mean it can't happen. Doesn't mean it's still not a good strategy. You can still make it happen.
I didn't think it would do Matt Ryan or the Falcons any service, but this is why I didn't mind going for Kyle Pitts personally, because I didn't think it did the team any good to have Justin Fields sit for 2 years. I didn't. You get Kyle Pitts in, becomes a 1,000-yard receiver immediately. I think this is a much more competitive argument for me passing on Justin Fields for Kyle Pitts if Mariota could get the ball to Pitts. As you documented last week, he missed a wide open Kyle Pitts on Thursday Night Football against the Panthers. He was wide open. And that just was a microcosm of the season for Mariota throwing the ball to Pitts.
It takes a special kind of talent to throw the ball over Pitts' head. 6'6" receiver. That is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. And Justin Fields has played a lot better. So I think if the Falcons were playing this game against Chicago maybe a month ago, the conversation is probably different. Conversation's more of, Justin Fields is a middling quarterback. I wouldn't, we go to the bust label way too early.
Yes.
He wasn't a bust a month ago, but he was a struggling young quarterback that was trying to find his way. And I think he's found his way the last couple weeks and has really shown that he could be a playmaker. I think you still need to see more from him as a passer, but he's become this dynamic playmaker the last couple weeks. And it really looks like Chicago has something there. And I guess what I would say from a Falcons perspective is don't forget what you have in Kyle Pitts when you do eventually figure out this quarterback thing. Right. At least to the point where he can hit a wide open Kyle Pitts. That would help.
Yeah.
Maybe not. It might take a while to find the true franchise quarterback like a Matt Ryan again. Those guys don't grow on trees. But just getting a competent quarterback in to get the ball to Pitts, who's only like 22 years old, you have a lot more years of Kyle Pitts for him to kind of make this much more even in terms of Pitts versus Fields debate.
Well, see, and this Fields discussion is why I kind of relate it back to Desmond Ridder. The Bears took advantage of that mini bye after playing the Commanders on Thursday night to kind of get things back together with their offense. Putting coordinator Luke Getsy and Fields in a room, kind of figuring out what they were doing wrong, what they were doing right, what they could do. And the Bears came out and just tore the Patriots a new one.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that's the game where they found their offense.
That was like mini bye plus. Play Thursday, and play until Monday, which has happened like 3 or 4 times this year. It's kind of weird scheduling.
But the Bears did a great job of self-scouting during that mini bye on their offense. Yeah. And I don't feel that the Falcons have done that at this point, where they've self-scouted their mini bye and saying, okay, here's what we can do with Mariota. Mariota has been strong at stretches in games, The Panthers was the first game where Mariota really looked terrible the entire game.
Yeah.
The throwing from your back, looking at the sky and praying for a miracle is not going to win you many games. Just that's a Kyler Murray end zone desperation type pass there.
Right.
But that's what I don't get the feeling, and what I felt, why I feel that the Falcons have missed their opportunity is that they really have not self-scouted, and I don't know, maybe we'll see something different tomorrow, Sunday, tomorrow. But I don't get the feeling that they know what they've done wrong and what they still can do with Mariota.
Well, I think they got to try and run the ball a lot more than they did against Carolina. The game plan you talked about last week was kind of odd, but for Carolina, to give Carolina some credit, they shut down the running game, and it just seemed like Arthur Smith, either that was the game plan to pass more, or he abandoned the running game too early. They didn't try to run the ball much after they fell behind, and that just set up Mariota as well for disaster because he was being asked to do too much, and then Carolina got after him too, 5 sacks. So it was really the first bad pass protection game as well. I think at least the worst pass protection game for the Falcons of the season. So that it was really all bad. It wasn't just Mariota. There was a lot not to like and I'm just talking about the offense right now. Defense too played poorly for Atlanta in that game. So hopefully they did a lot of what you were talking about, self-scouting during the mini bye.
Well, the problem is Atlanta's defense. Let's go to their defense for a second. It really has not improved over last season. They are last in the league with quarterback pressures. With 42 in 10 games. You can't win games that way if you're not getting to the quarterback, not getting the quarterback out of his rhythm. Not making him dance a little bit in the backfield or making him move a little bit in the backfield. Not being able to hit or to throw the ball when he wants to throw the ball, when he feels like he has the man, when he wants to throw the ball on a receiver's break instead of trying to find the receiver as defensive backs are closing in on him. That's where the Falcons have really fallen apart with their pass game. And with their pass defense, and it's frustrating because we were hoping to see more out of that this season. They really haven't. They haven't given it to us.
Yeah. And you talked about it last week. You passed on some defensive players and took Drake London instead.
Right.
A year after you took the playmaker tight end.
Kyle Pitts, right.
And what is tough, I think we've talked about this as well, that you have a head coach that wants to run the ball. And that's fine. Like, I like running the ball. But your GM and head coach got to be on the same page of how you're building your team and how you're trying to win games. And on offense, it seems like the head coach wants to win it one way, and the GM is giving them players. Yeah, maybe you're taking the best player available. I think that's what they did with Pitts, but you didn't have to reach for not that London was necessarily a reach, but you didn't have to take a wide receiver there. I think there were other players that you could say were the best player at that spot for defense. And you took another pass catcher that you can't really use right now with who you have at quarterback. So Brian says he's seen all he wants to see with Mariota. His lack of passing ability, can't consistently win.
Brian was with me last week, said the same thing. Yeah. So
we agree, Brian. Didn't mention our sponsor at the top of the show. Today's episode brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app in your app store on your phone. Get started with our promo code ASU when you sign up. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So you can double your money right at the start. And we're hoping to give you some picks today that you can double your money again. That's coming up in a little bit.
We'll be doing that soon. Yeah. I did pretty well, except for one of my prize picks last week. My other two I nailed. So I think we got some good ones for you again this week.
Yeah, we'll try to keep that momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your Falcons comments rolling in. We can get to them as we continue on to other topics. But I'm going to go to our love to loathe segment now, and it's all love this week. Thanksgiving's coming up, so I figured let's give thanks for some of the things that we love in the NFL. So I got 4 things just love this week. How about that Vikings-Bills matchup last week, Tom? Just fantastic.
Wow, that was amazing. Yeah. I don't know where the Vikings came from, how they pulled that out, but that was incredible. And man, Josh Allen just made a couple of terrible throws at the end of the game. Patrick Peterson made a great interception to finish it off, and end zone interception. It was something. That was a heck of a game, and surprised the heck out of me that Minnesota made the comeback in that game.
Yeah, super.
Minnesota's good, but I didn't think they were good enough to hang with the Bills the entire game.
Yeah, and we've touted the Bills a lot on this show this season, and for good reason.
Yeah,
but I think there's some weakness in that armor. I mean, we're gonna hopefully have time to make some Super Bowl picks again today, and I guess I haven't 100% decided who I'm going to pick for that in that segment yet, but. I'm not. I guess that tells you right there how I feel about the Bills right now. My confidence level is much lower. Not that I don't want to overreact to the last 2 weeks. They still have a great roster, but Josh Allen leads the league in interceptions right now. He fumbled that snap. Is he being asked to do too much? Kind of like a Lamar Jackson factor a couple years ago, where after he won the MVP, Jackson did. It just the whole offense, the whole team was built around him. And that's what it seems like with the Bills. They have other great players on offense, but every single play, it feels like he is trying to make this terrific play, and he's trying to do too much.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, he might have fallen in love with himself after last season, after that playoff game. And as I said, that divisional round against Kansas City was one of those rare performances where both quarterbacks raised themselves above the game, just transcended the game they were playing in. And maybe Josh Allen has watched that game a little too much. But the hell of it is the Bills can run the ball this year. They do have a running game, and I think they should do more with it.
Yeah.
Would take some of the pressure off of Josh Allen too. But I think they're enamored with what Josh Allen can do. Brian Dable just did a heck of a job turning him into an NFL quarterback, and everything they do revolves around Allen as far as their offense. They could take some of the pressure off him. They get the capability, do it, but we'll see as they go forward. But they don't need to keep asking Allen to win games for them.
They have quite a few good running backs at this point. I mean, Devin Singletary is averaging 4.3 yards per carry, which is not terrific, but doing a pretty good job of giving them balance. They could ask for more from him. I mean, they have James Cook that they could involve a little bit more in the run game, in the screen game, and they traded for Nyheim Hines. We haven't seen much of him yet. So where's he fit in, and can he be a bigger part of the running game to try and take some pressure off Allen? I really think they need to do that. If they're going to win the ball, Allen's got to do less, more efficiency and less put on his shoulders.
And that's the hell of it. That's what I was saying all last year. All during the regular season, as the Bills were, knocking down opponents, the fact is that they weren't running the ball, that they couldn't run the ball, that when it came time, they couldn't close out a game because they don't run the ball effectively enough. Well, I think Devin Singletary does run the ball effectively enough now. Yeah, it doesn't have a great yards per carry average, but he runs hard, and he gains yards when you need him.
Yeah.
And I think they could lean more on Devin Singletary and let, the Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis connection. It doesn't have to be that for the Bills to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. By the way, talking about Bills closing out games, 2-9 now. I think since the start of 2020. I think 2021 was the stat. Anyway, in their last 11 one-score games, they're 2-9. Not particularly strong in those close games. And Minnesota, on the other hand, terrific in one-score games this season. And that's why they're 8-1. So. Again, terrific game from the Bills and Vikings. Game of the year so far. Also on my loved list, Matt Ryan.
Yep.
Got to bring him up. Said we were going to talk about the Colts today, and everyone's been talking about Jeff Saturday getting his first win, coming off the couch, getting that win. He doesn't get that win without Matt Ryan.
Nope.
And there's not enough being talked about the fact that the Colts forced Frank Reich to bench Matt Ryan and put in Sam Ehlinger. The beat writers didn't want to come out and make that a report, but all implications, all suggestions from the beat writers were that Jim Irsay had a strong say in the quarterback change, even though Matt Ryan was hurt. I guess they would have, but they put in Ehlinger instead of a Nick Foles, and they tank with Reich. It gets him fired, quite frankly, although it wasn't going all that well for him anyway. But it
wasn't going well for the Colts anyway.
Gets him fired. Then they put Matt Ryan back in. Surprisingly, like Sam Ehlinger was supposed to start, and then it's like a surprise on Sunday afternoon, at least surprise to the public. Matt Ryan goes in, rushes for 39 yards on a play on the game-winning drive.
I know.
And ignites that Colts team. I don't know what else is in store for Jeff Saturday, Matt Ryan, and the Colts the rest of the season. I think they kind of maybe caught the Raiders off guard by that late quarterback switch. Raiders aren't that great of a team anyway.
Well, the Raiders, everybody's catching the Raiders off guard.
Right. And the Colts have a pretty tough schedule down the stretch. But great to see Matt Ryan back in the sun, at least one more time. Great performance from him. Loved seeing that. I hope the other Falcons fans did too.
Yeah, so do I. As you know, I'm a big Matt Ryan fan, and that was fun. That was fun. I couldn't believe that they had benched him for Ehlinger and especially a guy, all I kept hearing about him was, well, he looked great last summer, looked great in camp. He looks real sharp. Well, I don't care what you look like in camp. I don't give a flying leap what you look like in camp or in preseason games. It's when the season starts where it makes a difference. And he showed he is definitely not ready yet.
Yeah,
if he's ever going to be ready.
It's true. 6th round pick. I don't know. I think it's a legitimate question if he ever starts again in the NFL. I mean, I hate to say that for, the guy once, hopefully he gets another chance, but there's no guarantee that he's not talented enough to automatically assume he's going to start again. Nope. I guess is what I would say. and for him to go in for a Matt Ryan was head scratching. Really was head scratching. I want to get to a comment here from Brian. He's giving us an early Super Bowl pick. He likes San Francisco and Tennessee in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Kind of hard to argue with Tennessee after their performance at Lambeau Field. There's a crowded AFC field, but one of the guys that I wanted to talk about in the love segment was Ryan Tannehill. And it's great to see, him and he got to go on the post-game show with Amazon Prime after that matchup. And 35 wins for Tannehill. Top five.
I was going to ask, did they slime him? But then I remember that's the Nickelodeon thing.
Right. Wrong post-game show, Tom. 35 wins for Tannehill since he became the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. That's top 5 in the league among all starting quarterbacks during that time. Look, I get it. He has Derrick Henry on his offense. The offense isn't revolved around him. And he played awful in the playoffs last year. Still got to prove that he can win in the playoffs and take this really good Tennessee team to the Super Bowl. But
I agree.
I think he's a great story. Great story.
Yeah,
and I like seeing him have so much success in a primetime game after missing the last primetime game against Kansas City. And that's the only loss Tennessee's had since week 3. That loss Sunday night, overtime, against Kansas City on the road with a rookie quarterback who was just way overmatched, didn't really belong.
Oh, yeah, right.
So
Malik Willis, yeah. You can't judge what Tennessee did with Malik Willis at quarterback.
Yeah, so again, based on the last several weeks, hard to say that, oh no, Tennessee's not going to the Super Bowl, because they're playing some really good football.
Yeah, they are.
And Ryan Tannehill is a big part of that. So give him
some
love.
Threw the ball great last week. And he's got Robert Woods, we always knew was a good receiver, but Treylon Burks is really breaking out with Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it took Tennessee a little time to find out how to replace DJ Moore, but do I got my receivers right?
AJ Brown.
AJ Brown. I get my initials mixed up. I'm telling you, Dave, one of these days it's coming for you. You're a young guy yet, but it's coming for you. Yeah, Treylon Burks has done a great job replacing AJ Brown. And it seems like the Bills have found the offense that maybe a lot of people thought they were going to miss this year after Brown got traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. But, the Titans picked up just a receiver who's performing as well, and they got him under control for 4 years under contract.
Yeah.
And he's going to be a real weapon for Tannehill as a receiver.
That is a great example. I gave you a poor example of a GM and a head coach not being on the same page. A great example of them not being on the same page with the Falcons drafting, pass catchers and then trying to win with a running game. Tennessee knows who they are, if nothing else.
Yep.
They know who they are. And with the AJ Brown trade, I love AJ Brown. So it was tough to see.
I was shocked.
A situation where he was having so much success. But Tennessee knows that we want to run the ball. We want to win with Derrick Henry. We want to win with play action pass. We don't need to spend this much money on a wide receiver. And not that I don't think Treylon Burks is replacing AJ Brown at this point. He had a nice game on Thursday. Maybe he eventually gets to replacing AJ Brown, but the fact is they know that they can, the way Mike Vrabel wants to play, they don't need like this dynamic number one wide receiver. They just need guys to chip in order to win games. And then they can, not spending money on AJ Brown, they spend money on other places that they know Mike Vrabel is going to utilize.
Right. Exactly. I love Mike Vrabel as a football coach. He's been a heck of a head coach for Tennessee since he took over there.
Yeah.
And I really am impressed with Vrabel, the way he's coached. I didn't have much faith in the fact that Tennessee was going to have a strong season this year, but they find ways to win.
They do.
And they go out on the field. They know that they can win, and they find ways to do it. And Vrabel's put that mindset in that team.
Absolutely. Yep. He is the last remaining coach from the 2018 hiring cycle.
Yeah.
Now that Frank Reich is gone, Vrabel is the last man standing from that hiring period.
Yep.
I wanted to mention one other thing with the love segment, then we want to get to some picks. You talked about the Germany games last week. Yeah. I like seeing the Germany games. I like the 9:30 games. I don't always get up for the kickoff.
Right.
But I like the morning games. I like the games in Europe. And you talked about it last week. Germany really has taken to NFL football. And it's going to be cool seeing games in Munich and other German cities over the next couple of years. And they're going to continue to grow the game in that country. And I think that's really cool. And Monday night, we're going to see a game in Mexico.
Right. Exactly. That's going to be interesting to watch.
I do want to see the NFL figure out this field thing, because
so do I.
Way too much slipping of players on that field in Munich last week. and we'll see how the field conditions are in Mexico. A few years ago, they had to move the game because of poor conditions on that field. I'm not a turf expert, but there is different turf that's used with soccer versus football, and the only international field that's been specifically designed for the NFL is Tottenham Hotspurs. They bring in a special field. And that stadium was built just a few years ago with the idea of we're going to have NFL games here. So they have the ability to bring in that turf. The NFL's got to figure out this problem with international games. But I really like seeing the games in the mornings, and I like seeing them in different countries. I think it's really cool.
So do I. I think it is. And they got an enthusiastic crowd in Munich last week. And yeah, I think take advantage of some of this groundwork that you did lay about a decade ago with this World League of American Football. And, again, you had a great audience in Germany for this game. And it's about time they started taking advantage of it. They whet the appetite. Now they gave them a good game too. So
yeah, that's true.
I think they gave them a better game than they've been giving London for quite a while.
That's true.
So
true. Yeah, a couple of really good teams. Well, Tampa Bay has been a middling team, but they're in first place. So,
but they were in first place. They were a division leader.
Yeah. Brian says he likes the morning games as well. He's too antsy waiting until 1 o'clock. I feel that way too. I think it's going to be kind of a shock to the system waking up tomorrow and being like, oh, there's no NFL game on yet. I got to wait till 1 o'clock. So I like that. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why the morning game is nice. You wake up and there's already a game to turn on.
When I was a kid, we didn't worry about those morning games. We watched pregame shows. You had your CBS pregame shows with
but even that, what time did that start?
It started at 11 o'clock, but then you watched the coach's show before that. You watched Ditka talk to all the Bears fans, go woof 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 woof, and so you had your from 10 o'clock to noon. You had your pregame football. You had your football. You got enough to get you to that kickoff. So as I said, when I was growing up, we didn't worry about Sunday morning football. We were kids. We watched what they showed us. So
I think it's a little better today with the Sunday morning shows and YouTube shows. We wouldn't be on the air, wouldn't be on the internet.
I know. There
was no internet back then. I don't
know.
Or maybe there was. I don't know. When was the internet created? Respect, I think. I'm always surprised when internet was created 70s. Was it around in the 80s?
I think it was around, but not for public use.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Brian says he used to watch pregame shows too. He was a kid.
I just want to see. Tell you the truth, Brian, I am less enamored with pregame shows these days. I don't watch them as much. I would rather just get to the football, skip all the other stuff. Super Bowl Sunday. I don't need to see 6 hours of pregame. I don't need to see that. I don't need to see concerts. Just get me to the game. Once I'm at the game, once I'm watching the game, I'm fine. Until we get to the game, I have no interest in anything they're showing me. So yeah, Brian, I'm with you on that one. I'm not much more I can say about that.
Well, let's get to your picks. I'm sure you have plenty to say there. You got something against the spread for us this week?
Oh, I sure do, Dave. I do. We're going to start out. We are going to start out with the Chicago Bears getting 3 points at the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I know the Bears, they are the only team in NFL history to score 29 points in 3 straight games and lose. The average 29 points, 3 straight games and lose. But the Bears are averaging 5.6 yards per carry. It's going to be a ground game. Both these teams, this game might be over before other teams get out of the third quarter. because of the running game.
Yeah.
But Bears are leading the league, 5.6 yards per carry. Pro Football Outsiders has the Bears as the fifth best offense in the league. And we talk about Justin Fields running. Justin Fields can also throw. He's looking downfield more. He doesn't bury his head and start running. I watched some of the All-11 film from last week and really threw some nice passes against zone coverage. Found his receivers really well. Does a great job at that. So Fields is improving all the time. And the problem is can they keep Atlanta from scoring? And that's going to be the tough part because neither team does well against the rush. Neither team does well against the pass. But I think the Bears rush the ball better, and I think they're going to take advantage of it more. They had a 14-point lead against the Lions last week, which their defense blew. And I say, without Roquan Smith running this team, being the leader on defense, they've had a problem finding a way to finding someone they can rally around on defense and who can call plays and be the leader on that unit. But I think this week the Bears +3 at the Falcons. I think they win by 3. Or I think they win the game outright. So take that one. Commanders -3 versus the Houston Texans. The Commanders have been tough to run against, and that's all Houston can do. That's all they can do. I feel bad for Lovie Smith because he's really got a pathetic team to work with. I think he's going to get fired at the end of the season. But the Commanders play tough enough. If Tyler Heineke starts at quarterback, I think the Commanders win by more than 3. They win comfortably in that game. They have got to quit starting Carson Wentz. You can't keep putting Carson Wentz out there. Heineke is their quarterback. And I have the New York Giants -3 versus the Lions. The Giants keep winning. They don't do it fancy. They don't blow anybody away. They don't, they don't have Josh Allen and stuff on Diggs, but they find a way to win. Brian Dable's really got that team believing in themselves. And I think the Lions did well. The fact that they were facing the Bears, they were facing a terrible defense, were able to come back. Jared Goff against the Giants defense, I think he's going to have a lot more problems. So take the Giants -3 versus the Lions. So those are my 3 picks. And feeling good.
So in that first game, the Bears Falcons, the Falcons are favored?
Yeah, Falcons are favored. Basically, if you're favored by 3 at home, that is the sports books telling you that on a neutral field, both these teams are equal.
Yeah.
You get basically a 2.5 to 3 point spread as the home team, being a favorite than if you were on a neutral site. So I think if they were in Chicago, the Bears would be favored by 2.5 or 3. But this, because it's being played in Atlanta gets the favor. And we'll see what happens. But the Bears run the ball so well. They got the best running offense in the league. They are going to be tough to stop, especially with this Atlanta defense. I don't think this Atlanta defense is good enough to stop them yet. And until Atlanta finally decides to get serious about building a defense, it's going to be a struggle for them, moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm surprised you say you think Lovie Smith's going to get fired just after one season, and they had David Culley for one season. Is that really the best thing to do again? Is move on from another head coach after 1 year?
Houston has a history of it. The last 4 years, I think they've had 3 head coaches. So
that's got to end at some point.
Yeah, it's got to end at some point, but this hasn't been a good ownership either.
Yeah.
And I think they ended up with Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith was definitely not. I think he was like their fourth or fifth choice. They really weren't looking to end up with Lovie Smith as their head coach, and I don't think he's going to last past this season. I think if they were playing better defense, they would be, but they're not playing very good defense either right now.
Yeah.
So, and that's what Lovey gives you. He gives you defense. But if you're not playing strong defense, you might as well look at your entire program and figure out what you want to do. They don't have a quarterback. We finally found out that they don't have a quarterback, and it's going to be rough. I think for Smith. I think Smith should get another year. I'm looking at the organization and saying he won't get another year.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's time for our Prize Picks. Again, today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app in your app store. And when you do, use our promo code ASU, gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. Join today, get started in week 11. You could get started even today with some college football, NBA, NHL action on the app as well. But we have some picks today for Prize Picks to get you started in the NFL tomorrow.
We also bet on World Cup soccer. World Cup
that's
soccer
right.
is on the sheet.
Does that start Monday? Is that right?
Don't know, something like that.
Big soccer fans here.
Yeah, big soccer fan. Right. So, but do you know in soccer they have a stat called clean sheets? Whoa.
Got Millie here.
Millie.
Roger sat in her bed again.
Oh,
Roger's.
Oh,
yeah.
It's your fault. That.
It's your
That's
fault.
terrible. But they have a stat called clean sheets, which I would assume is how many times can you get clean sheets brought to your room before the game. And no, it's how many times do you shut out another team? So,
right.
Yeah. Jordan Pickford, 2.5 clean sheets. You might want to take a look at that for Monday's game for England.
Oh, clean sheets is like a stat in Prize Picks?
Yeah, clean sheets. It's in Prize Picks. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
So, it's something. And they're all around 2.5. So, Hugo Lloris for France, 2.5 clean sheets. So you can go above or below 2.5 clean sheets.
For the whole tournament.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just for that game, I think. I think it's for the whole tournament. You're right.
Because you can only get one clean sheet.
You can only get one clean sheet for a game.
I know that much.
Okay. Dave, that's not bad. You knew that.
All right, we're going to move back to what we know. The NFL.
Please. Please move back to what we know.
We're gonna give you some entries to use for Prize Picks on the NFL tomorrow. I've got 3 picks for you. Austin Eckler, 5.5 receptions. He's had more than 5 receptions in each of his last 4 games. He's only had under 5 receptions twice this season. He's on pace to set a record for most catches by a running back in a single season. So I don't see that changing against the Kansas City Chiefs. He already played the Chiefs this season in week 2. And in that game, Eckler had 9 catches. So I think he will definitely go over the 5.5 mark in the receptions category. My second pick, Donovan Peoples-Jones, having a pretty good season for the Cleveland Browns. His receiving yards mark in Prize Picks, 47.5 yards. He's been over that total each of the last 6 games and has been over that 7 times this season. Yep. So against the Buffalo Bills team, that's a pretty good defense, but has had guys in and out of the lineup in the secondary. They're 9th overall, I believe, in total pass defense. I still think Peoples-Jones will go over 47.5 yards. And my third pick is Russell Wilson in pass attempts, 30.5 pass attempts. He's been over that mark in but one this season. One reason why I paused on this pick, Tom, the one time he didn't go over 30 pass attempts was against the Las Vegas Raiders in week 4, and he's playing the Raiders this week.
Yeah.
But in that game, the Broncos only ran 48 plays from scrimmage. So very low total. Maybe the only reason why Wilson didn't reach that mark is because the offense just wasn't on the field very much. I think they'll be on the field more at home against the Raiders. This time around, the Raiders are a team that's kind of falling apart, and I don't expect Denver to run away with this game, even though Vegas isn't all that good. So Wilson is going to be asked to throw the ball more than 30 times.
Yeah, that's a good. Those are great picks. I like what you got there. For me, my first pick, Dameon Pierce for the Houston Texans. I'm taking him under 79.5 yards.
Ooh, an under. Okay.
I'm taking an under. Yep. Because I think Washington has enough, good enough on the run stuff. And Pierce is really the only real weapon that Texans have instead of Davis Mills, who is, I'm pretty much over as far as thinking he might be a professional quarterback. But I don't think Pierce rolls up to 79.5 yards. And I would say take the under. I got 2 wide receivers for you as for overs. CeeDee Lamb against Minnesota. Take him 77.5 yards, receiving yards. I think he'll rack that up. I think you can throw against Minnesota. You may not beat Minnesota, but I think CeeDee Lamb can get to 77.5. And I'm going to ride a guy that I had last week and did a great job and was one of my winners for last week. Darnell Mooney with the Bears. 43.5 receiving yards against the Falcons. I think Fields is going to throw better this week against the Falcons. I think he's going to have time. The Bears' offensive line is great at run blocking, not great at pass blocking. The Falcons aren't great at bringing pressure against opponents. So I think Fields will get a chance to throw. Darnell Mooney is his favorite target, and I think Mooney goes over the 43.5 yards.
Okay. I like those picks too. So we gave you 6 guys to choose from this week. Again, get started if you haven't already by downloading the Prize Picks app in your app store and use our promo code ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. And then use some of our picks or your own picks to get started with that free money that you get. And hopefully you're, rolling in some extra dough come next week with some of the entry winnings that you use from us or yourself.
Say Black Friday's coming up. You're going to need those Christmas deals.
It's true.
You're going to need that. So it's time to pick up some extra money.
Absolutely. And, maybe if you don't want to, if you're not a big shopper on Black Friday, maybe, and if you have a big winnings from Prize Picks, a great cause to donate it to would be No Shave November. Yep. You can follow No Shave November. I found it this week has a Twitter account. Twitter is still up, by the way. It hasn't blown up yet. It's still in business. Follow @no_shave, and that also will get you to a link, no-shave.org. And they don't raise money just for prostate cancer, which I thought was really the main cause that No Shave November was for. I would still say it is the main cause, but this website raises money from No Shave November for all cancers. So if you're not shaving this month like me, donate the money that you would put towards shaving products towards a great cause like no-shave.org.
Yeah, absolute great cause and a great way of doing it. Great way of raising money for cancer awareness.
we'll leave you with our Super Bowl picks. I told you I'm wavering on my decision. I don't want to overreact to the Vikings Bills game, and it's like I'm tempted to go with Minnesota, especially because Philadelphia lost, and I'm tempted to go off the Bills bandwagon, but I think it'd be wrong to overreact to that game. So I'm going to hedge my bets. I'm going to stay with the Eagles, not go to the Vikings. But I am going to move off the Bills. And I don't think we're talking enough about the Kansas City Chiefs, at least not on this show. We really haven't talked about the Chiefs a lot this season. And they're putting together a really good year. Brian made a point in our comment section that they don't run the ball particularly well. They are 21st in rushing yards, but they're middle of the pack in yards per carry. So I think they do enough on the ground, and you're going to see more from the rookie Isaiah Pacheco, I think, in the second half to complement Patrick Mahomes. I'm going with the Chiefs as the AFC representative. I'm choosing Chiefs, Eagles, and for an MVP pick, we haven't made an MVP pick in a few weeks now. I'm going to Patrick Mahomes. He won that first MVP in his second season, and he set the bar so high for himself that I feel like unless he throws for 5,000 yards and 55 touchdowns, we feel like he's not deserving of MVP again. And that's just not fair because that was an all-time record-setting season. He's had some really good seasons since, and I think in the public eye, it's like, well, yeah, Mahomes is great, but it's like he's not quite at the level he was at. Well, he's never going to get to that level again. No one's been at that level but him.
No.
One season. So I think it's time if he continues to keep this up, it's time for him to win his second MVP because he's been the most consistent quarterback and best performing quarterback, I think, of the year so far.
Okay. That's a legit pick. I'm going to take a team that I think has been widely overlooked so far this year. I don't think they're going to stay overlooked as much heading into the stretch. Baltimore Ravens are 6-3 right now and playing some very good football. Offense does not rotate around Lamar Jackson as much. They can do other things. They have a strong defense. I like what Baltimore's putting together so far this year. For the NFC,
I like that pick.
For the NFC, it's tough because I don't totally believe in the Vikings yet.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to believe in the Vikings. I'm going to stay with Philadelphia for a little bit longer as my NFC pick.
Okay.
Because I just don't see anybody else who's capable at the moment. We'll see how things move forward with the Vikings and if they can build on that win over the Bills last week.
I like Brian bringing up the 49ers. I think the 49ers should be in the conversation, even though they don't have like a really stellar record. And they came to Atlanta and laid a really big stinker. And I think that's why I'm not like on their bandwagon more
because
they just leave something to be desired. But there is a lot there for them to work with, a lot of talent on that roster.
Yeah.
And then they did it last year. They made a kind of a surprising run, won some road playoff games against good teams. They could do that again. So
yes,
I'll throw them in there as well with the other teams that we mentioned.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, going to be an interesting week. We'll see how things set up after week 11 and go from there.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And we'll be back next Saturday at noon Eastern time.
Yep, well, plenty to talk about. So have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we will have a great week.